Spaceport Mover is a game that integrates tower defense, STG, and endless running. The core gameplay of this game is mainly about path connection and resource management. In order to avoid simplex gradual pace change in tower defense and endless running, which lead to single negative feedback game experience on gameplay and strategy, I have added player active control game pace design. According to different situations, player can choose time stop or keep moving to control the game pace dynamically. This motivates players' adjustment of decision making on dynamic situations. Firstly, I analyze specific gameplay and compatible gameplay in different game genres. Then combine with the goal experience that I want to create for players, such as low numbers, multiple mechanic, and avoiding sense of repetition. I sift and integrate the elements and mechanic in different game genres. Finally, I conclude the design directions, which include multifunctional elements, strategy selections, and flexible pace changes. Players' motivation is centered on obtaining resources and removing enemies. This part requires players' physical skill, like reaction speed, timing, and accuracy. Based on these two basic motivations, players need to further optimize their game strategy or adjust their unit structure. This part tests more mental skill, which include observation, tactics, strategy, and resource management. For instance, when players are cope with complicated terrain, if players connect less number of towers, resources will be transmitted faster. Rules are based on the interaction among elements, while elements are close linked with each other and influence on each other. Most rules are built around the relationship between tower and other elements. Most of the time, players control the enabled towers directly, and indirect control path and characters through towers. Meanwhile, rules need to coordinate with time stop feature. So I set the rule that the tower connection process is not instantaneous. When time stops, tower can only generate an estimated translucent path. This estimated path can be enabled until the game speed returns to the normal speed. The mastery of rules and flexible applications of rules are the important methods for players to generate and optimize strategy. The rule expansion will be filtered into players' acknowledge through various kinds of situations. For example, players face the obstacle that have no harm but need resources to eliminate it in the early phase of the game. So players can understand that they can eliminate threats by path and characters. Therefore, players can use known methods to eliminate enemies, which can cause damage to the tower in the late game. One of the experiences that I want to create for players is slow repetition. Due to the screen scrolling and enemy movement, players need to estimate the dynamic position of enemies and shoot accurately. Random shoot will only waste more resources. Another goal is to avoid unchanged unit actions. The game has no changes on enemy health or damage, but increase their strength by adjust terrain and their position. Players need to think and adopt appropriate countermeasures to attack or avoid them. The game reduces the singleless boredom feeling by integrating mechanics and elements in 3 different game genres. In order to cope with the genre changes, players need to change their strategy and roles constantly. from attack to defense, from command to execute. There are two kinds of loops exist in the game: positive feedback loop and negative feedback loop. In positive feedback loop, players can gain an advantage by constant attack and obtain resource under extreme disadvantage condition, or execute more attack and obtain more resources based on their abundant resources storage. However, the large resources in-game require players to make more decisions and predictions to ensure that the goals can be achieved. On the contrary, if players make mistakes in planning or prediction, it is possible for them to encounter failure. While some failures and disadvantaged situations will cause continuous failure, but negative feedback loop also help players to learn how to adjust strategy and reaction. The game is basically divided into 3 phases. The early phase is more simple and used as novice guidance, while the difficulty of mid-turn and late-turn are higher. I remind the player of phase changes by add a special map between 2 phases. Player will not only notice that there are more enemies and obstacles in the late term, but also experience the maps with more complicated terrain or higher mental skill requirements. Through the test, I found conditions that some players can pass high difficulty maps with fast reaction, and will improve the utilization of time stop in later versions.